The morning sun filtered through the tall glass windows of their 22nd floor apartment overlooking the shimmering skyline of Dubai, painting golden streaks across the marble floor as Ayan slowly opened his eyes to find Zara curled beside him, her hair scattered across the pillow like soft silk and her breathing calm, peaceful, completely unaware that he had been awake for minutes simply admiring her. The same girl he had married 3 months ago after a whirlwind love story that had taken both their hearts hostage. Their marriage was young, tender, and full of the kind of innocence mixed with passion that only newlyweds can truly feel, and every morning felt like opening a new chapter of a book he never wanted to end. Their home smelled of vanilla candles from the night before, remnants of their playful late-night cooking session still on the kitchen counter, where Zara had tried to make pasta but ended up splashing sauce on his shirt before he pulled her close and kissed her forehead, laughing at her clumsiness. It was these small moments, these tiny collisions of their personalities, that made their married life so beautifully unpredictable. Ayan shifted slightly, brushing a strand of hair away from her face when she blinked awake, smiling sleepily at him in that soft, heart-melting way that made him forget the rest of the world. "Good morning, Mr. Khan," she whispered, her voice warm and teasing, and he responded by pulling her into his chest, wrapping his arms around her waist as the city hummed beneath them, the traffic, the wind, and the distant call to prayer blending softly into the background of their intimate morning. They stayed like that for minutes, neither wanting to break the silence, because silence between two people who truly love each other never feels empty, only warm. Finally, she pushed his shoulder playfully, telling him he was making her late for work, but he tightened his grip, telling her he deserved at least 5 more minutes of his wife before she disappeared into the world again. She laughed, the sound bright like sunshine, and pressed a soft kiss against his cheek before slipping out of bed, wrapping herself in her coral pink robe as she walked toward the bathroom. Ayan watched her, admiring the grace in even her smallest movements, but also feeling the soft ache of realizing how deeply he had fallen for her. Marriage had made him vulnerable in ways he never expected, but it also made him stronger every time she smiled at him. Zara returned moments later, hair tied up, cheeks glowing, and began preparing breakfast, not anything grand, just toast and eggs, but she danced around the kitchen, humming softly, the morning light catching on her skin and making her look like a painting. He joined her, slipping his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder, feeling her relax into him as she whispered, "Ayan, what are you doing?" "The eggs will burn," and he replied, "Let them burn, my wife looks too beautiful to ignore." She blushed, pushing him gently but not enough to break his hold, and for a moment, time slowed down around them, two people in love, starting their day with warmth, closeness, and the comfort of belonging to each other. After breakfast, they sat on the balcony with coffee cups in hand, the wind brushing against their faces as they talked about everything, her plans at work, his new business project, their weekend getaway to Abu Dhabi, and even trivial things like which color of curtains would look better in the bedroom. Married life had not taken away the romance, instead it had deepened it, making every conversation feel like building a home together, brick by emotional brick. When Zara stood to leave, Ayan held her hand, pulling her close once again, whispering softly in her ear, "Come home early. I miss you the moment you step out," and she smiled, kissing him gently before stepping into the elevator, leaving him with the echo of her perfume and the soft emptiness of the apartment that only she could fill. This was their life, modern, busy, rushed, but filled with a love so deep, so pure, and so quietly passionate that even the shining city of Dubai felt small in comparison. In the first few weeks after their marriage, Ayan and Hania felt like they were living inside a dream. Every morning began with laughter, and every night ended with whispered conversations about their future, but slowly, the real chapters of their new life began unfolding, revealing both sweetness and storms no one had prepared them for. It started with small things. Hania loved waking up early and filling the house with the smell of cardamom tea, while Ayan, a certified night owl, preferred long mornings and late breakfasts. But the first morning he woke up to a fully lit house and the sound of dishes being washed, he got irritated, and when Hania saw him frowning at the brightness, she felt hurt. "I'm just trying to set the house," she said softly, and Ayan, who didn't know how to express himself in that moment, simply stayed quiet, which made the silence even heavier. The next day, another small thing turned into a misunderstanding. Ayan forgot to reply to her message for 3 hours because of a meeting, and Hania, newly married and still adjusting, felt ignored, thinking maybe it didn't matter to him the same way it mattered to her. So when Ayan arrived home excited to share news about a project, he was confused to find her unusually quiet, eyes lowered, holding back tears, and in that moment he realized that marriage wasn't only about smiles, it was about learning, patience, and communication. That night, instead of getting angry at her silence, he sat beside her on the sofa, gently held her hand, and said, "Tell me what's in your heart, please." And Hania finally let the truth spill out, how she feared losing him, how she felt insecure when he stayed silent, how she wanted them to be each other's safe place. Ayan listened, truly listened, and when she finished, he wrapped her in his arms and whispered, "I promise we will learn together, no one here is perfect, not even me." And that was the beginning of their deeper understanding. But life wasn't done testing them. One evening they had guests coming over, and Hania, wanting everything to look perfect, spent hours decorating, cooking, and preparing, while Ayan, thinking she needed rest, told her to relax and that they could order food instead. But Hania felt as if her efforts were not valued and snapped at him, leaving Ayan shocked. And for the first time, their voices rose, not in anger at each other, but out of frustration, tiredness, and the pressure of wanting to do everything right. After the guests left, instead of continuing the argument, Ayan quietly took her hand, guided her to the couch, and softly said, "You don't have to do everything alone, we are a team." And when she saw the sincerity in his eyes, tears rolled down her cheeks as she apologized, and he wiped them gently like she was the most fragile thing in the world. This was the moment they realized that love deepens not only through romance but through forgiveness, understanding, and growing together. They learned to divide chores. Ayan took charge of laundry and groceries, while Hania handled cooking and decorating, and slowly, their home began to feel like their home, shaped by both of them, not just one. One Saturday afternoon, they had one of their cutest moments. Ayan was trying to make chai for the first time, and Hania secretly recorded him struggling to measure sugar correctly, laughing silently as he muttered to himself, "Why is cooking so hard?" And when he finally served the tea proudly, she pretended it was perfect even though it was unusually sweet, appreciating his effort more than the taste. And when he later found the video on her phone, instead of getting upset, he pulled her into a playful hug, saying, "So this is how you make fun of me?" And they ended up laughing on the kitchen floor, their hearts closer than ever. One night, after a tiring week, they sat on their balcony with blankets wrapped around them, sipping tea under the glowing city lights, and Hania placed her head on his chest while he played softly with her fingers, both of them silent yet completely connected. And Ayan thought to himself how lucky he was to find someone who understood his quietness, while Hania felt thankful for someone who listened to her even when she didn't know how to express her feelings. But the most important moment came one evening during a rainstorm when the power went out. They sat on the living room floor with candles around them, Hania wrapped in Ayan's jacket, and they talked for hours about childhood memories, fears, dreams, and future kids' names. And with every word spoken in the warm candlelight, they realized that misunderstandings were not roadblocks, they were stepping stones that made their bond stronger. By the end of the conversation, Ayan gently kissed her forehead and said, "No matter how hard things get, we will always find our way back to each other." And Hania, with tears of love in her eyes, nodded and whispered, "Always," making this night a turning point in their marriage. Little did they know, this understanding, this emotional maturity, would become the foundation for the beautiful future awaiting them. That night became a turning point for both of them, a night they would remember even decades later, because it was the first time they truly saw each other not as two people bound by a wedding, but as two souls learning how to love under the same roof. It started with a small moment, Aiden arriving home unusually early, holding 2 boxes of takeout, expecting to surprise Zara, but instead finding her curled up on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her like a shield, eyes swollen, cheeks damp, and the TV on but muted, the flickering light reflecting her exhaustion. Without asking anything, Aiden slowly walked toward her, placed the food on the table, and knelt down in front of her, his hands gently touching her knees as he whispered, "Talk to me, what's hurting you this much?" And hearing that, something inside Zara broke open, a dam of bottled emotions, insecurity, and the unfamiliar pressure of a new marriage. She tried to hide her face, but Aiden softly pulled the blanket down, revealing her trembling lips, and that vulnerability hit him like a wave. She told him everything, how she felt scared she wasn't good enough, how she thought he didn't want her, how she felt alone when he got busy, and how marriage suddenly felt too big for her to carry. Aiden listened without interrupting, his eyes never leaving hers, his thumb wiping away a tear that escaped down her cheek. And then he did something she wasn't expecting. He gently lifted her from the couch and sat down, placing her on his lap, wrapping his arms tightly around her, letting her cry into his chest as if he were sheltering her from the world. He wasn't just holding her, he was holding every fear she had ever swallowed. Minutes passed, the room felt still, the outside city lights sparkling through the windows like they were blessing the moment, and when her breathing steadied, Aiden whispered in a cracked voice, "You're the best thing that has ever happened to me. I don't want distance between us, I don't ever want you thinking you're alone. I come home to you, Zara, not to this apartment, but to you." And those words, simple yet overflowing with sincerity, washed away weeks of silent tension. Zara lifted her head slightly, her nose brushing against his jawline, her eyes meeting his, filled with softness and disbelief, and then she placed her palm against his heart, feeling it beat fast under her fingers, a rhythm that matched the intensity in his gaze. The atmosphere shifted, warm, tender, magnetic, and for the first time since their wedding, Zara leaned in by her own choice, resting her forehead against his as their breaths mingled in the quiet light. Aiden cupped her face with both hands, brushing his thumbs along her jawline, as if memorizing her. "You matter," he whispered, "your feelings, your fears, your dreams, they all matter to me." And she closed her eyes, letting those words settle into her bones. He kissed her forehead slow and lingering, a kiss that spoke of patience, of promise, of a man willing to learn how to love properly. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer as they sat like that, two hearts pressing into each other with no walls between them. Eventually, they moved to the balcony, still holding hands, the night breeze touching their skin as they leaned against the railing overlooking the glittering skyline. Zara rested her head on his shoulder, tracing circles on his arm with her fingers. A silent thank you for giving her a safe place to fall apart. Aiden placed a kiss on the top of her head and whispered, "Let's promise each other something. Whenever something hurts, we say it, we don't hide it." And she nodded, tears returning but this time from relief, not pain. Later, they shared the takeout food on the floor of the living room, laughing over how terrible the noodles tasted, teasing each other, feeding each other small bites like teenagers rediscovering new love. He played her favorite song softly, and she danced with him barefoot on the cold tiles, her hands in his, her eyes shining as if she had found the home she never knew she needed. By the time they finally settled on the sofa again, wrapped in the same blanket, Zara whispered, "Thank you for choosing me every day," and Aiden tightened his arms around her, replying, "I don't choose you every day. I choose you every moment." And in that moment, under the dim lights and soft music, their marriage grew roots, deep, strong, unbreakable, marking the night that changed everything. Life in the bustling city had been a beautiful whirlwind for Ayan and Zara since their marriage, filled with laughter, shared dreams, stolen kisses on the balcony, and cozy mornings together. But the fourth month brought with it a challenge they hadn't anticipated, testing not just their love but their trust, patience, and resilience. It began when Ayan's work demanded extra hours, unexpected business trips, and high-pressure deadlines, leaving him tired, stressed, and emotionally unavailable. At times, while Zara, used to his constant presence, found herself juggling household responsibilities, minor setbacks at work, and the loneliness of a home that suddenly felt too quiet without his laughter echoing through it, and the tension built subtly like a storm waiting to break. Small misunderstandings over trivial things became arguments, such as him forgetting to attend a small lunch she had prepared for them, or her being irritable after a long day at work, and neither wanting to appear weak or complain first. One evening, after an exhausting week, Zara had set the table for a simple dinner she hoped would bring them together, but Ayan arrived home later than expected, weary and distracted, barely noticing the candlelight and flowers she had arranged, and she felt the familiar sting of disappointment, which she tried to hide behind a forced smile. Yet when he simply dropped his bag and slumped into a chair without even looking at her, the frustration she had kept buried exploded into words sharp and trembling with emotion. "Do you even notice when I do something for us? Or is it all just background noise to your busy life?" And Ayan, shocked, rubbed his tired eyes, feeling the weight of guilt hitting him harder than any deadline ever could, realizing that in chasing professional Success, he had neglected the very heart that had brought him joy and warmth every morning. Instead of arguing further, he sat beside her in silence, took her hand in his, and finally spoke, his voice calm yet heavy with sincerity. I didn't realize. I was blind with stress, but I see you now, and I'm so sorry. You matter more than any meeting or project. That night, the city lights twinkled outside their apartment, reflecting in the quiet water of the fountain below as they talked, raw and unfiltered, about their fears, expectations, and dreams, allowing the emotional storm to wash away the tension between them. They shared stories from their childhoods, moments of heartbreak, and personal insecurities, discovering again the reasons they had fallen in love, and each revelation made them feel closer, like two magnets finally aligned after being pulled apart by life's chaos. Ayan gently brushed a strand of hair from Zara's face, pulling her into a slow, lingering embrace, and whispered, "We'll face this together. No distance, no misunderstandings, nothing will come between us if we stay honest." And she rested her head on his chest, feeling the rhythmic beat of his heart as if it had become the anchor of her world, calming every fear and doubt. The intimacy of that moment led to a night filled with gentle touches, soft kisses, and whispered promises, where their physical closeness mirrored the emotional reconnection they had just achieved, building a trust deeper than before, making them understand that love wasn't just about joy and laughter, it was about weathering storms, making compromises, and learning each other's language in silence as much as in words. The next morning, they woke up to sunlight spilling across the floor, and even the way Zara poured his coffee with a shy smile, and Ayan kissed her hand as thanks felt like new beginnings, infused with lessons learned, laughter, and mutual respect. And from that day forward, they made small changes. Ayan began scheduling short breaks to call her during work, even sending little messages that said, "Thinking of you," while Zara allowed herself to step back when stressed, trusting him to support her. Weekends became sacred, reserved for them to explore the city, try new cafes, go on long drives along the marina, and even dance spontaneously in their living room to favorite songs, creating memories that strengthened their bond while reminding them that love was both playful and serious, tender and passionate, soft and electrifying. By the end of the month, they had transformed their marriage into a beautiful balance of independence and intimacy, understanding that challenges were not threats but opportunities to grow closer, and that the love they shared was resilient enough to face the pressures of work, family, and life in a big city. And in quiet moments on their balcony, overlooking the glittering skyline, hands intertwined and hearts beating in unison, they both realized that marriage was not only about being together but about choosing each other every single day, through arguments, stress, joys, and unexpected tears, making every hug, kiss, and shared smile a treasure that cemented their extraordinary love story. The months that followed the challenges of their fourth month of marriage transformed Ayan and Zara in ways neither of them had imagined, teaching them the delicate art of patience, the strength of forgiveness, and the depth of love that grows not only in joy but in adversity. And this final chapter of their journey began one early morning as they woke to the warm sunlight spilling through their apartment windows, the soft hum of the city below, and a quiet sense of anticipation in the air, for Ayan had promised her a surprise that would celebrate not just their love but their commitment to always choose each other, and Zara, though curious, felt a flutter of excitement and nerves as she watched him bustle around the living room, arranging flowers in a tall vase, scattering small candles across the coffee table, and preparing a tray with breakfast, pancakes stacked neatly, fresh fruit glistening, and their favorite coffee steaming in 2 mugs, the aroma filling the apartment with warmth and comfort. She felt her heart swell as she saw him moving with care, noticing the smallest details, from the way he aligned the plates to the way he placed a handwritten note beside her mug, saying simply, "For the woman who makes every moment magical," and she could hardly contain her smile, feeling a love so deep it almost brought tears to her eyes. And when he finally turned to her, his face radiant with anticipation and joy, she realized again how far they had come, from small misunderstandings and arguments to nights of deep conversations, laughter on the floor of their living room, and quiet moments on the balcony that had slowly knit their hearts inseparably together. They sat down to eat, feeding each other bites of pancakes, laughing at silly jokes and playful teases. But the day's true magic began when Ayan led her to the balcony, where he had arranged a soft blanket, fairy lights twinkling around them, and the city skyline glowing like it had been painted for their eyes alone. and as they settled there, wrapped in each other's arms, he looked into her eyes with a seriousness that made her heart race and whispered, "Zara, these months have shown me that life is unpredictable, that work can take me away, and that small arguments can shake us, but every challenge, every tear, every laughter has brought me closer to you, and I want to make a promise today, to never take you for granted, to always communicate, to always fight for us, and to always love you beyond what words can hold." And in that moment, as the soft wind brushed their faces and the city hummed below, Zara felt her chest tighten with emotion and replied, tears welling up but smiling, "Ayan, I promise the same, to never let fear or pride come between us, to be patient, understanding, and always yours." And he pulled her closer, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead that seemed to seal their vows in a way no ring or certificate could. The day unfolded into a celebration of their love. They cooked together, dancing around the kitchen while soft music played, sometimes bumping into each other, laughing uncontrollably, feeding one another small bites, their chemistry electric yet comforting, a reminder of the passion that had sparked the first night they truly connected and the deep bond that had grown since. And later they went out for a stroll through the city streets, hand in hand, watching the golden hour sunlight reflect off glass buildings, sharing whispers and secrets, stopping to take silly photos together, each one capturing the joy, trust, and intimacy that had become the cornerstone of their marriage. As evening fell, they returned home to a quiet apartment filled with soft light, sitting together on the balcony once more, sharing dreams of children, travel, and the future adventures that awaited them, feeling the certainty that life, no matter how chaotic, would always be beautiful as long as they faced it side by side. That night, they curled up under blankets, the hum of the city a soothing backdrop, and talked until their voices softened, drifting into a peaceful sleep. Wrapped in each other's arms, a tangible reminder that their love had matured into something rare and profound, a love that embraced flaws, celebrated victories, survived misunderstandings, and ultimately flourished into an unbreakable bond. Months later, looking back on the journey, from the first shared smiles to their small fights, emotional nights, and rediscoveries of each other, Ayan and Zara realized that the beauty of marriage lay not in perfection but in growth, compassion, laughter, and the unwavering choice to stand by one another every day. And with that realization, they made a silent pact to continue building memories, cherishing each other, and nurturing a love that was no longer just romantic or passionate but safe, comforting, and eternal. And as they held hands on that balcony, gazing at the glittering city that had witnessed their journey, both knew with every beat of their hearts that no matter what came next, their love story, full of warmth, passion, laughter, tears, and dreams, would be forever and always theirs.